All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey guys, Gary with CENLA Backyard Chickens here with you again. And if been watching my videos long enough, you know that I will from time to time talk about the Livestock Conservancy. And more specifically, I usually will go in there and I'll look up one of the chickens on the conservation priority list, talk about those chickens, the importance of heritage breeds, what we need to do about it. And today we are so lucky to have Miss Jeannette Beranger here with us. She is the senior program manager for the Conservancy. She came to the organization with 25 years of experience working as an animal professional, including veterinary and zoological institutions with a focus on heritage breeds. She's been with the Conservancy since 2005, uses her knowledge to plan and implement conservation programs, conduct field research, and advise farmers in their endeavors with rare breeds. She's a best-selling author with a book called Introduction to Heritage Breeds. At home, she lives what she preaches, and she maintains a heritage breed flock at her home. In 2015, she was honored as one of the top 45 amazing country women in America by Country Woman's Magazine for her longstanding dedication to breed conservation. Wow, this lady really has it all. Jeannette, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
So I love the conservation. Let's just dive right in. Let's talk about how the Livestock Conservancy got started, what its mission is, and specifically what you do for them.
Yeah, well, it's a really great origin story, actually, and it goes back to the bicentennial. And there were a bunch of living history museums
Oh,
that were looking to display animals that were around during the colonial period. Problem was they couldn't find them. And these breeds that were once really common were now really hard to find. And in particular, they were looking for milking Devon cattle because they were very important, especially in um, the Northeast. And there were very few left. And so the following year, a group of these folks decided to organize, and they created what we now know today as the Livestock Conservancy. And what we do is we don't conserve everything that's rare. We actually have a process to decide um, what is genetically distinct and important, and that if, if it would disappear today, there's no recreating it genetically. So,
right.
for instance, quarter horses, if they were to disappear tomorrow, technically you could recreate them because we have colonial Spanish horses and Suffolk punch horses. Inversely, if Suffolk punch horses were to disappear tomorrow, there is no way to recreate them genetically.
Oh, wow.
So this helps us bring the list of breeds down to a manageable number. I say manageable, it's still 150 breeds, but it at least focuses our work on the breeds that, from a genetic sense, are valuable and irreplaceable. And so we create the conservation priority list, which gets reviewed twice a year. And, you know, breeds, they become popular for a while and then not so popular. And so we do a review a couple of times a year just to make sure we're keeping an accurate eye on what really needs help. And we do that through a number of things. Certainly censusing is a powerful tool to get us to understand what kind of trends are out there. We do annual census on livestock breeds. Poultry is a lot more difficult because there are no registries for poultry. And I'm really excited for our next poultry census because we're working with the American Poultry Association, who just created an official census committee. So we're going to be pulling together a team of people from each of the different classes of birds to divvy up the work and hopefully get a really accurate idea of what's going on with poultry out there. And so that's kind of how we got started. And now when people ask, how do you save a rare breed? We have a three-prong approach, which is discover, secure, and sustain. So discover is, through censusing, through word of mouth, through investigation, finding out what's out there that needs our attention. And sometimes it's just somebody calling saying, hey, my neighbor up the road has this flock of goats that's been in their family for 100 years. That makes you stand up and, you investigate it to see
Indeed.
if the history does back up what we think they are. And, and if they are, the resource that we think they are, then we'll put some effort into helping to support whatever we can for that person or that family to keep going with the goats. We had the situation like that with some Spanish goats down in Florida, and the owner had died, and the rest of the family didn't want to keep the goats, and so we were able to get those goats in the hands of people that specialize in Spanish goats and know the significance of these animals, and keep them going. And so the discover part of it's, kind of the exciting part, because, if you travel in the deep South or in pockets of this country that, you know, um, are kind of off the beaten path, you can find some really extraordinary things if you know what you're looking for. So, I've always got in the back of my head filed away the questions that I would ask, about the history, and then using my eyes to look at the
Hmm.
phenotype, and does these animals fit what they should look like, and discovers a kind of fun and exciting part. And then the secure is where it gets kind of harder, and that's where we try to network people together. Sometimes we'll encourage breed associations to form, if there hasn't been one already created. And I can say with certainty that breeds that do well have strong breed associations. And so we do what we can to help support breed associations in their work. We actually have a lot of training materials for people, because a lot of people get into a breed association and think it's just going to be fun and it's a club, and there's work to it, and a lot
Guilty,
of
guilty.
yeah, people don't realize that. And so we've actually developed quite a few educational materials for people that are just getting involved with an association, or an association that wants to up their game. Um, and so we're hoping that these, will be powerful tools for people. Um, Other things we do is, if there needs to be a rescue, I have mentioned that goat population. Okay, we discovered that this was really important. We also discovered that they're about to go to auction, and so we jump into action, and try and help out. And
Oh, oh my.
the, yeah, yeah. And we try to tell people, if you run into a situation like that, give us a call. We might be able to do something about it. We had a gentleman out in Nevada that had a stunning herd of milking shorthorns. And when I say stunning, you go out in the field and you cannot pick out a single fault on his milking shorthorns. They're stunning. And there was a big drought, and he's like, I can't be, ostrich sticking my head on the sand. I've got to reduce the herd. And he wanted X price for them, and he wasn't going to take any less, because he can make X price sending them for beef. And so, we put a call out to people for starter herds, and the cattle were worth way more than that, what he was selling them, in my opinion. But we were able to get all of the extra cattle sold within, I think we did it within 30 days.
Wonderful.
So we were able to save those really outstanding cattle. Um, and so, the secure parts, a bit more tricky. And we also try and document things on the animals, so that we cultivate people that might be thinking about them, and we want to give people a realistic idea of what it's going to take to keep these animals. Um, Sticking with cattle, like ancient white park cattle, they're great if you have a lot of predators and you're worried about losses from anything from bears to mountain lions. You're not going to have to worry about that with white park cattle. They surround their calves like musk ox, and God help the wolf that thinks it's going to get a baby.
Oh, how
They're
neat. Yeah.
but this is not going to be a backyard milk cow. You need to understand that you need to know what you're doing with these cattle, and they're lovely cattle. And if you know how to work cattle, you shouldn't have a problem. But for beginners, we're like, no, this is not going to be the cow for you. So, part of the whole secure is helping these breeds get into the hands of people that are going to have good success with them. And there are definitely beginning breeds, and there are definitely breeds that need a little more expertise to raise. And then the final part is the sustain. And that's even harder because, you want to help these animals survive for the long term. And the way you do that is by finding jobs for them. And so that's where we step in to help with marketing and trying to get word out about the breeds by going on podcasts or writing articles or again, helping the breed associations be more savvy in promoting their breeds. And
If I'm understanding correctly, you guys, you try to pinpoint what breeds need help, and you go out there into the field and you work however you're able to make sure that you can keep these breeds viable and, for lack of a better words, keep hooves on the ground or chicken feet on the ground, whatever the
yeah.
particular breed is. Do y'all do anything as far as genetic sampling and keeping the genes just in case the breed does disappear, maybe
Oh
sometime
yeah,
in the future?
absolutely. That's
Okay.
that's also part of the secure part of the picture.
Uh,
We actually work with USDA, and the largest repository for germplasm of livestock and poultry is right here in the U.S. in Colorado
oh,
Springs, and
wow.
it's the National Animal
Wonderful.
Germplasm Program. And it's kind of like everybody is familiar with the seed vault in Norway. Well, this is a breed vault, here in the US, and it's quite large. And we work a lot with them in securing germplasm, which is cells, eggs, embryos, semen. They do it all. We recently got funding because of the threat of African swine fever being in the Caribbean. It's just a matter of time before it gets up here. And so we just got funding to sample pig populations, especially in the Southeast, because we think that's probably where it's going to come in, and bank them. And so these are going to be cell lines that are created from these little ear punches. You take a little punch of the ear that's the size of a pencil lead, very, very tiny. And then USDA gets a hold of it and creates a cell line that they can then freeze. And
Okay.
those cells hopefully can be either cloned, or they can be manipulated to be sperm cells or embryos or whatever. And the technology is not quite there yet, but it's coming. And
Yeah.
so right now the priority is to save what we can before it disappears. And so yeah, we're doing that. And we're actually one of the priorities of USDA is actually poultry for the first time because of AI and how it's been determined that it's, in other species, the threat level is even higher. And so this coming year, we're going to be sampling a lot of rare breed poultry to go into that repository. So, matter of fact, I raise Crevcours, and oddly enough, it's one of their target breeds because they consider it a foundational breed from
Oh,
the
yeah.
continental
Krebs.
line.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and I've got U.S. lines and French bloodlines. And so once the weather warms up a little bit, I'm going to be shipping eggs out to them uh, to hatch out, and then they're going to get the cells from those birds. They have to be under strict quarantine, so I'm going to be sending hatching eggs so that they can be, in a quarantine facility and then collected. Um, so that's kind of exciting because they haven't really focused on poultry much because it's still, really hard to work with, cloning of poultry or fertilizing uh, an embryo. Well, uh, it's just technically really difficult for reproductive technologies
Oh
with
yeah,
poultry.
yeah.
You could do AI easy enough, but all the other stuff's really hard, and they're trying to figure it out. So, but why wait? We get the cells now and we'll worry about the technology later. But
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
I've got a friend of mine, Michelle Sullivan from Texas, and she shows crabs, and she may even be interested in getting involved in some of that with you. She's got some championship birds over there with her, so that's pretty cool. Now something
yeah,
else I wanted to
I
ask.
put money on it. They're probably related to my birds.
Probably so. Wouldn't be a bit
Yeah,
surprised. You
yeah,
talked earlier about heritage breeds, and most of the chickens that I have, Buff Orpingtons, Plymouth Rock, New Hampshire Reds, Rhode Island Reds, I keep heritage breeds chickens because I just really, really love them. And heritage breeds extends not only to poultry, but I mean horses, cows, ducks, pigs, just like you were talking
oh
earlier.
yeah.
But when it comes to a chicken, especially, can you tell our audience what classifies this particular breed as a heritage breed?
Well, we got the definition on our website, but to put it in a short way, because it's a bit lengthy definition, they have to, our cutoff date is breed that's been around prior to 1920. There are some exceptions, but usually they're breeds that have been around for a really long time, and that the foundation from which that breed was created no longer exists. And so, like the Crevecoeur, they've been around since the 12th century, and the birds that were used to create that breed no longer exist. So once they're gone, that's it. Same thing with, the Rhode Island Red. They've been around a long time, and the foundation breeds that was used to create it are either super rare themselves or non-existent, and so they make the list, although their numbers are good. um, the thing is, where you get kind of muddy is commercial lines. And yeah, I mean, as well as anybody that a commercial Rhode Island Red is a completely different animal than a traditional Rhode Island Red.
100% different. I
Yeah,
got
and
to see that at a show one time, and I was like, that does not look like my bird. I mean, this thing was
yeah, and
wow.
a lot of that's just beginners. They don't know what they don't know,
Yeah.
and so uh, I always tell people when they're getting into a breed, do your research before you jump into a breed. And, I like to tell people when they're getting into a rare breed, what do you expect them to do for you? Do you want a lot of eggs? Do you want a lot of meat? Do you have infrastructure that's going to suit that animal? And the very last question anybody should be asking themselves is, do you like them? Because a lot of people jump in. That's the first thing. Oh, they're cool looking. I'm going to get them. And, that might not be the best thing to do, so, yeah, and so they have to have a long history in the U.S. and be genetically distinct.
Okay. I remember one of the breeds that I had highlighted from your website was the Cubalaya. And if memory
Uh-huh.
serves, and I don't have my papers open or anything, that they're on the critical list. But one of
They
the things
are.
that really struck me about them The articles that I read said that the chicks and pullets do not really have a natural flight instinct. That they will come up to people that they've never even known and allow them to feed them out of their hands, which can make them really good and friendly pets, but also make them susceptible to getting in trouble out there when it comes to predators.
Mhm.
But I also read some articles that some of the roosters don't have spurs. Is that correct?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I know that the roosters during breeding season can be aggressive with others.
You would
My
think so. Yeah,
understanding
that's
is
that's the
they're
rooster. Yeah.
pretty, yeah, they're pretty laid back most of the time, but during breeding season they can get a little bit aggressive because they do have a little bit of game fowl in them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd have to check into that, but I don't know specifically if they don't have spurs.
Well, I may be
Um,
putting more than one breed together at a time right now. I don't, like I said, I don't have my papers out in front of me. But do you
yeah.
know if in the last, I don't know, 50, 75 years, have we completely lost any breeds of heritage chickens out there?
Um, the one that comes to mind is the Lamona.
So we have.
And
Yeah.
yeah, the ones that are out there right now are recreations. They're not the original breed. We had looked into them to see if they could fit our list. And at the time, there were two people that supposedly had Lamonas. Um, Neither of the two people would share birds and would not um, collaborate. They just like they're going to do their thing with their birds. And as things turn out, one got flooded out and lost all his birds, and then the other one
Yeah.
lost all the birds to either, I can't remember if it was predators or fire, but both flocks are gone. And we don't see any evidence that there are any pure genetically original Lamonas. There are some beautiful Lamonas recreated out there, and they look exactly like the breed. It's just from a genetic standpoint, they're not that breed, so they don't qualify for the
Wow.
list.
I'll be. Well,
Yeah, and I should say that the other thing about getting a breed on a list is it has to be a viable population and enough people involved that the breed can actually survive. When you have only two breeders that are unwilling to share stock, that's not boding well for a breed's future. And so, when we are looking to bring a breed on to the list, we want to make sure that there's enough genetic diversity that the population's going to survive, and that there are enough people that are interested in them
sure.
to
Yeah.
keep them going. Um,
But shifting gears just a little bit, you've got a background in veterinary and zoological studies, and now we're seeing a resurgence of bird flu. For the backyard chicken people like me, people that have 5 to 15 birds in their backyards, and you have a flock, probably larger yourself, do we, the general public, the backyard chicken guys like me, do we need to be concerned about this bird flu?
Well, I think so. I mean, we're fortunate here in North Carolina that our extension services let us know if it's anywhere in the state. Like I got an email just last week that, the bird flu's been found out east. Now it's like 4 hours away from me, so I'm not
Oh,
terribly
wow.
concerned,
Yeah,
but I've had it closer in years past, and I just keep my birds in. They're miserable, but I'd rather they be miserable than dead. Um,
so if
I also
I'm sorry, go ahead.
uh, I also participate in, you probably do too, the National Poultry Improvement Program,
Yes, I do.
and
Yep.
my flock is certified AI clean.
Yep.
So my flock's actually a monitor flock for AI. As a matter of fact, my agent's coming in next week to do AI testing. Um, so yeah, if it's close by, you should be worried. I work really hard to make sure that wild birds don't find anything interesting in my chicken coops that make them want to be in them. All the food and water is inside, and I have little chicken doors that they're not inclined to want to go through. So, I think making sure that the wild birds aren't getting into your feed and water is going to be really, really important. They could still fly over a coop and poop in it, but if you've got a big coop, covering the coop's not an option for a lot of people. So the other option is just keeping them inside.
Yeah, and
You know.
and folks, if you're not understanding what she's saying, and if I'm getting it right, you're not going to get bird flu from a chicken that's 40 miles away, but you can get it from the wild birds that come in contact with your flock. So if your feed is outside where wild birds can get to it, if your waters are out there where they can poop into it and they can get the bacteria from that, or just pooping out if
Yeah.
you let them free range, the biosecurity measures that we want to take, put your birds inside in a covered area until this problem has passed. Does that kind of spell it out?
Yeah, and I would limit visitors. Like even if you're going to the feed store, maybe dedicate shoes only for working with your chickens, and don't wear your everyday shoes into the coops because people could track it in on their feet. And, if you're going to the feed store, maybe just not wear those shoes near your chicken coops, and just limit anybody coming into the coops, and you just play it smart. I mean, if you really want to get intent, you could be as
Oh,
intense as you want. You can have a foot
absolutely. Yeah.
bath. Um, you can take all kinds of measures to keep your birds safe. But even places that take every measure possible, sometimes it still gets in. So you just got to be vigilant. And I'm a firm believer in testing, and because you want to know if your birds have it or not, and God forbid they have it, you got to do the right thing and
Yeah, and
take
that's
care
the
of the problem.
NPIP, National Poultry Improvement Plan. Am I pronouncing that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, and here in
yeah,
Louisiana, it's free. They don't charge you for that. I think in
yeah.
Texas, you actually get charged for it. So they'll come out to my house once a year, take blood samples from my birds. Right then and there, they put them on the little test strips, and
Oh
they'll
yeah,
let you know what's going on. So it's really, really neat. And then you get a big piece of paper that says, "Hey, your flock's clean." So that's really cool.
yeah. We
Before we
actually get a
go,
little card.
yeah, before we go,
Yeah.
tell us about your flock of chickens.
Well, I started working with Crev Corps about 10 years ago because we had just finished up the Buckeye project. We had worked with Buckeyes for about 10 years, and they were extremely rare and in rough shape. And the Conservancy got a little bit of funding to work on bringing Buckeyes back to breed standard and build numbers. And the project worked fabulously. Buckeyes are nice and secure now. So I took the methods that we learned with the Buckeye project and put it on the Crev course, because the Crev course were in pretty bad shape when we got started. And none of them made breed standard weight, which is, rooster should be 8 pounds. I was lucky if I had one that was 5 pounds when I started. I'm happy to say that through selective breeding, and also we were fortunate enough to work with um, Greenfire Farms to make an import from France of hatching
Hmm.
eggs. I'm married to a Frenchman, and my family happens to live not far from Crevecoeur. So I knew a few of the breeders over there and made the connections for them. And Greenfire was nice enough to let me have some of the import chicks.
Oh, how neat!
And that, yeah, it really was a game changer for the Crev course. And so now I've got big, beautiful birds, and the roosters. It takes them 2 years. They're slow growing.
I've heard. Yeah.
But my 2-year-olds are every bit of 8 pounds. And um, after 10 years, I finally feel like I've got that uh, uh, consistency, which I think is the greatest thing within a flock, is having consistent birds and not just a few good ones and a few not so good ones, but they're acceptable. When I walk into the coop and I see all the hens out there, this year's the first year all my hens are massive. You know, they're
We
huge. Um, and you when you're starting out with very little, you got to work with what you got. And now I'm to the point where it's taken a lot of years, but now all the hens and the roosters are massive and beautiful, and you know they're where they should be, and
wow.
they're still quite delicious.
Yeah. Before we go, the most important question that I would have for you today is how can folks get involved with the Livestock Conservancy?
Well, you can join. We're a membership organization, and we'd love to have you become a member. It's only $45 a year. Um, some of the things that it gives you is free access to post classified ads. You're put on the online breeders and products directory. If you're looking to sell birds or eggs or any kind of products from your animals, we are like the one-stop shop for that. If people are looking for rare breeds, they go to our online breeders and products directory, and as a member, you get listed there. So it's a great benefit for you if you're looking to sell animals or products. Or a lot of people join just to support the work, because the work doesn't get done for free. We getting out in the field and doing the DNA work and all that does take money. And especially lately, it's been pretty tough for nonprofits these days. And so joining would be a really meaningful way to help the work of the Conservancy. You can also donate. That's fine
Absolutely.
too.
Uh,
I also wanted to mention the Livestock Conservancy has a micro grant program for people that are working with rare breeds, and it's up to $2,000. And we will be opening up the next round of micro grants in May. But it can be for all kinds of stuff that most other grants don't cover, like incubator, like building a new coop, like bringing in a new bloodline that you really need for your breeding program. It's a great program, very flexible, very easy to fill out. Don't let the word grant scare you. It's actually, we've made it as easy as humanly possible to apply for them. But I don't know about you, but $2,000 would go a long way with my flock.
oh
Unfortunately,
boy.
I can't apply for it, but
Yeah.
yeah, but
Like,
we have a lot of poultry people sign up for it.
well, I've got to say, I've noticed around me, especially since COVID, there's so many people now that are involved with backyard chickens, and the word's starting to get out of how much people just absolutely love these birds. That they're more than just livestock anymore. They're pets and family members. I have birds out there that are just extremely, affectionate, and I know that people looking at this video are going to start understanding just how important and valuable the work that it is that you guys do. Hopefully, we can get more and more people to donate to this great cause, this wonderful
Oh,
organization,
thanks.
and join. Jeannette, thank you so much for being on the show today. It has been an absolute pleasure to
Oh, my
get to
pleasure
chat
too.
with you. I hope we get to do it again sometime. In the meantime, folks, y'all take care. Gary with CENLA Backyard Chickens again, and bye bye.
Bye.
Hello, friends, and I hope you guys are enjoying the episodes that I've put together, and I'd love to hear from you to be able to get more ideas. But as you can imagine, doing this is not free. So if you could find it in your heart at some point to maybe think about wanting to support the show, a buck or two, I mean, that's not a big deal. But if that's something you would consider doing, you can go to any of the episodes from your podcast app. I personally use Apple Podcast app. Scroll down, click on support the show. And if you do, I'll give you a shout out on the show. And again, I will answer and read and answer your questions on the show as well. Or you could just simply go to chickenseveryday.buzzsprout.com. That's chickens, plural, everyday, all one word, .buzzsprout.com. And it would be very helpful, believe it or not. I have equipment that I need to upgrade. I pay a monthly fee for the podcast service. I pay a monthly fee for the editing software that I use. So anyway, I thought I would bring this to your attention. And if it's something that you would consider doing, I would be eternally grateful. Thank you. Bye-bye.